Teacher claims I'm lying about my mom having cancer. This was in my grade 11 year of high school. My computer class had a year-long substitute teacher because our amazing teacher was out for a year working on a government contract. Our previous teacher was outstanding. He had 6 different classes in our classroom, all happening at the same time, which were computer repair, programming LVL1, programming LVL2, networking LVL1, networking LVL2A, and LVL2B. He would give a lecture for each of the classes on a specific day of the week, programming on Monday, repair on Tuesday, and so on. We would all work in our own groups, and everything went quite well. The next year came around, and I found out that we had a sub for the year. I had 2 back-to-back blocks in this class. Because I was doing 2 courses, I wandered up to the class to see what kind of teacher we were dealing with. Mainly interested, because I was almost certain whoever they found did not have the credentials to teach at least half of those classes. The new teacher was a foreign woman that none of us have ever heard of before. For the purpose of the story, we will call her Mrs. S. I went and found my friends to tell them what I had seen. We were all optimistic cause from a very short conversation. She seemed quite informed and had a good background. It didn't last long. On the first day of class, Mrs. S introduced herself as a programming teacher who had been in school for 4 years. She went on to tell us about her programming experience in Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Access. She then told us that the programming students would not be doing the Java and C++ course we had signed up for, and would instead be doing database and Excel, because those are what she learned. And she said, and I quote, "They will be more useful than C and the Java." She also went on to suspend all at lunch clubs because she didn't think high school students could be trusted with computers alone. Understandably, some of us were quite upset about that, considering that we came there to program. She also did not give the repair people or the networking people any kind of support and completely stopped their lectures as well, preferring to let them figure it out themselves and self-teach without giving any of the resources to do so, and occasionally throwing out a test pre-written by the last teacher for her. This continued for about 2 weeks till one day she came in and said, quite irritated, that we would actually be doing the Java now unless we wanted to keep doing database. So we switched to Java, and she basically left us out to dry from there. Because she wasn't teaching database anymore, she came to harass people in computer repair. First, she told us the shop room was too messy and made us throw out 90% of our training workstations and equipment because they were not important in her eyes. Equipment that did not belong to the school, but actually belonged to the other teacher. We took home what we could steal for safekeeping, but she did end up throwing out a few thousand in equipment. Then she started imposing stupid rules on us, such as, you can't have the computer on while you are troubleshooting inside, cause you could electrocute yourself. Or you don't need the case open to troubleshoot motherboard lights. Or my personal favorite, and the most scary, maybe you should change the power supply to 240 volts if you aren't getting enough power. We followed most of her stupid requests as much as we could, because she threatened to lock us out of the lab room and give us only textbook work if we didn't. Needless to say, it was a challenging time. One of the students in the networking area got fed up and started doing up his own coursework and lecturing to us so that we could at least get some kind of use out of the courses. To his credit, it was all very good, but Mrs. S had the balls to force him into doing it from there on out and then turn around and give him low grades for not getting his own work done on time. A few months of this very uneasy balance go by, and my mother comes down with colon cancer. I have already had a handful of other family members suddenly taken from me by cancer, so understandably, this is a very stressful time. I was joking with my friends and trying to not break down over the whole thing. I had a very unstable laptop running Linux that would crash if looked at funny, and had a horrible habit of corrupting the OS when the battery died because the reserve shutdown sensor didn't work anymore. Battery always read 0%, but would go for an hour or two. While I was working on the school desktop computer, I had a few pages open that I was taking notes in and a Facebook tab, so I could keep in contact with my mother because she was in surgery and I was waiting for her to come out. I look over and the teacher is snooping through my laptop, opening folders and closing windows, and eventually pushes the power button in till it shuts down, which also usually corrupts anything I was doing. The following happened. M. What the hell do you think you are doing? S. You shouldn't be on Facebook or writing notes on a personal computer during class time, especially when your grades are slipping. Thanks for bringing that up in front of everyone. M. That gives you no right to touch my stuff. You better hope you didn't just corrupt everything. This laptop breaks easy. S. Then you shouldn't have it out during class. Keep that tone up, and I'll see you get a detention. At this point, I am trying just to keep calm, because if I get too emotional, I have a tendency to explode. This is often made worse because of my mild autism. I took a second, replied in a calmer tone. M. I'm sorry. I'm just having a hard time at home right now. My mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, and I am waiting to hear back. And this is the part which really set me off. S. You don't look like a kid whose mother has cancer. Quit making sob story excuses. Are you fucking kidding me? It took every fiber of my body not to stand up and slap the bitch right there. I gave her the dirtiest 1,000-yard stare I think I have ever done, while also trying to not burst out crying. I spoke to nobody for the rest of the day till I got home. People kept asking if I was okay, and I ignored everyone. My mother was out of the hospital and home by the time I got there. I broke down crying and told her about my day. Her face was comforting, but you could see the fire of an angry woman behind her brown eyes. She told me not to worry and that it'd be okay. A few weeks passed and I was called into the office for a one-on-one parent-teacher conference someone forgot to tell me about. There were all the teachers I had that year, good and bad. My learning assistance teacher, the VP, and the principal herself. They told me that we were there to discuss my grade slippage as soon as my mother came. My mother was about 10 minutes late, leaving me to awkwardly sit with all these people. She comes in and is all smiles. M. Sorry I am late. I got held late at the hospital. Someone, but I'm not sure who, asked her why she was at the hospital and if everything is okay. My mother answered in her happy way. M. I was just getting my cancer checked on because I have cancer. The room went cold and her voice seemingly dripped with blood when she said it. My computers teacher went pale and everyone in the room was giving a confused, "What on earth did you do?" look. My mother proceeded to relay me coming crying home about how I was treated to everyone present, while Mrs. S tried to become one with the wall of the small meeting room. She kept it short, but to paraphrase, added the following. M. How dare you say something so careless to my son? I hope you are ashamed, and I hope you don't get invited back for another year. She then returned back to her normal happy self and discussed my grades, like nothing happened, whilst half the teachers were still trying to figure out what just happened, and told them that now she was out of the hospital, my grades should improve again. I just sat quiet the whole time and tried to suppress bursting out laughing. After that day, she never directly spoke to me again, had instructions relayed through other people, or gave them to the class as a whole. She did her damnedest to be nowhere near me and say nothing to me. My grades improved quite a bit, and the year ended with me passing. Mrs. S was previously offered a job at the school as a secondary computer teacher, but after all the trouble, the job was pulled back. The next year, when our first computer teacher returned, he was furious to learn most of his equipment, and personal books had been thrown out. We returned the things that we snagged during the purge, but he still lost a few thousand in personal teaching stuff. The school paid him back with $10,000, but he says he lost so much more than that in time and preset handmade equipment. We told him all about the horror show, and he gave us all an extensive test, normally given at the end of the year, which the vast majority of us failed. We ended up redoing all the computer courses from the previous year because, in his words, she didn't even teach us the basics. That sub can no longer teach in this or the neighboring districts.